Department in a potential Trump-Vance administration. Let's talk about that. Let's bring in NBC News national security editor David Rode. He is a co-author of a new piece from NBCnews.com, which asked the question, would Justice Department and FBI officials carry out Trump's prosecutions of his rivals? And great timing for this, giving his violent comments about Liz Cheney that we are talking about this morning. In the piece, you cite legal experts who are concerned about how it would be possible if Trump could weaponize the Department of Justice in his second term. And you write in part this. Stephen Gillers, a professor of legal ethics at the NYU School of Law, said that it, quote, saddens me to say, but there is no question that Trump would be able to find lawyers willing to carry out his wishes in the Justice Department. You're dealing with 1.3 million American lawyers, Gillers said. No doubt he will find 1,000 who will endorse his goals and seek to achieve them. Former Justice Department and FBI officials said it's hard to envision that U.S. law enforcement wouldn't be severely hampered by what would be likely to ensue in a second Trump administration. Let's assume that you have the numbers. You go in and just whack a good portion of the workforce, a former Justice Department official said. I don't care who you put in. It's no longer a functioning institution. Can I add to that another layer? He's immune. He has immunity.
Yes, I mean, we sat down and tried to be fair and talk to
tabletops,
all kinds of tabletops, current and former Republicans and Democrats,
right?
And they all came to the same conclusion: you're looking at chaos, deadlock, legal battles,
right?
And a slowing down of the basic work of the Justice Department, which is confronting fentanyl traffickers, confronting Russia and China and other countries and their activities in this country. So the stakes are enormous. He can do this. He can take over and weaponize the Justice Department.
Let me emphasize before we go to Jonathan Lemire. He can do this. Can the process be carried out against an enemy, someone he doesn't like or someone he just decides, without evidence?
He can appoint a special counsel. He can set up a task force and prosecute people in different parts of the country. There are two checks.
There are ways to do it, though, without enemy combatant.
Absolutely.
Are there ways to do it without you can just arrest people?
He can indict people. The only thing that would stop him would be a judge saying there is no evidence of this and you can't bring forward this criminal trial. And then finally it would fall down to a judge, which we all have, a judge of our peers. But he could hold the trial also in a part of the country where a jury might be more favorable to him and favorable to convicting people.
Johnson.
Certainly chilling comments there, David. Let's talk about last time around when he was president. There were some guardrails, and at times even his own attorney general stood up against him. You know, Bill Barr said, no, we're not going to go after the Bidens in the election's final weeks. And even Jeff Sessions, one of his earliest supporters, at times drew the line and said, we can't do that. This time around, though, there's an expectation there won't be those guardrails. Tell us about some of the people who might be attorney general for a second Trump term.
One name that's come up is Jeff Clark. He was the election denier who wanted to come in just before January 6th. He was stopped by other Republicans in the Justice Department who refused to let him come in, threatened to resign, led by Jeff Rosen. They were heroic. And there's people in the Justice Department, Republicans and Democrats, who won't go along with this, but they will be fired. There's another firebrand named Mike Davis, who's talked about working as an acting attorney general. Again, a loophole. You can have an acting attorney general, any cabinet member, for 210 days. So he doesn't need Senate confirmation.
That's where it happens.
Yes, and he's talked on a conservative podcast about a reign of terror where he would serve as the acting attorney general, indict Joe Biden, free the January 6th defendants.
Reign of terror before. Jonathan.
Sorry.
Yes, well, and they've been very clear about the fact they learned all these lessons from the first 4 years, and they have a different idea about what they need to get, who the kind of people they need to get appointed. But the question I wanted to ask you, David, was to talk about the last line of defense, because it's been the case with Trump on a lot of fronts that the judiciary has kind of held the line, certainly held the line back in 2020 on the stolen election claims. Trump has had an influence, though, of course, over the judiciary in various ways. So how much should anybody feel comforted by the notion that in some of these cases a judge could stop the worst abuses of the case? Or should we be looking and saying, whoa, Trump has transformed the judiciary in a lot of ways in the 4 years.
Look at the documents case.
And that transformation of the judiciary means that last line of defense could be weaker than it was before.
It's weaker. One of the people has talked about appointing as Attorney General is Aileen Cannon, the federal judge who he appointed who threw out the documents case. And he's just broken another precedent there. There was a sense that no judge would be so overtly partisan. Aileen Cannon made this ruling. It will likely be overturned by more reasonable judges. Again, there are more conservative, more reasonable judges out there. But this is the stakes. The judge who throws away arguably the strongest criminal case against him would be his new Attorney General. She's on a list that ABC News reported. And that's the seriousness of the situation.
NBC News national security editor David Rode, thank you very much. His book, Where Tyranny Begins, the Justice Department, the FBI, and the War on Democracy, is on sale now. This would be a good time to read it this weekend, perhaps before you vote.